What's going on, everybody? This is Future Automation, a place where imagination meets reality. And welcome to another Weekend Talks episode. This is going to be really fun because we are going to talk about Flutter for enterprises and Flutter in general with Dhrumil. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the podcast. It's really great that finally we are able to make it, and this will be really fun. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hey, thank you so much, Tejas, for inviting me for this particular podcast. I'm really excited to talk about the stuff that you just mentioned.
Yes, great, great. So, sir, we'll start with the basic introduction, and then we'll go with discussing about the Flutter and all the other things that we are having in line. Yes, sir.
Sure. It's myself, Dhrumil Shah. I work at a company called TATA Digital. I work there as a lead architect. Apart from that, my day job, I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter and Dart, and also a community organizer for a named GDG Ahmedabad. So I'm basically from Ahmedabad, Gujarat. Relocated to Bangalore since last 7 8 months because of the job, obviously. And apart from that, I love to help the startups and students or whatever they are building. So if you are someone who don't know how to convert your idea into the application or a business, or you are stuck at somewhere with your tech stuff, or especially in the mobile app ecosystem, you can reach out to me and I can help whatever the ability I have. And that's what I do on my daily basis.
Great, great. So for the viewers, I'll leave the link of Dhrumil sir's LinkedIn profile in the description and other contacts as well. So make sure you check it out, and if you have any questions, you can reach them out. Okay, so let's start with the questions, and we'll start with a brief introduction to Flutter and its significance in the world of mobile application development. So what do you think is a brief, a little bit of introduction on that part?
So, if you ask me what Flutter about in the especially mobile app ecosystem, so in mobile app ecosystem, most of the time, what is happening right now is any problem that any want to cater it. So they want to serve all the mobile platforms available in the market. Now, majorly there are two platform right now, is Android and iOS. And now to solve your problem, to build your application on top of that, what you have to do is you have to learn both the platform, how the apps are getting developed on that. Now, once you know that, then you have to go nitty gritty and you have to learn. Apart from that, if you have some a framework which can help you to build an application where you do not have to learn both the things, if you just learn one thing and you can build your application solution and you can deploy on it, that will be helpful. So there are many such framework available, and Flutter is one of them. Now, how Flutter outperforms, because Flutter gives you the full access of your whole canvas. Canvas, if you are just give an example, like for example, you have your mobile phone screen, and on mobile phone screen, anything happening is under your control. That means it will work as on the canvas, and whatever you're writing the code, it will just get drawn on the screen. Whether you are writing a button, your text field, your checkbox, in other framework, what happens when you write a button, that button actually goes to that platform's api, and that platform api rendered the screen. Here the whole control is with you. So that's why the Flutter like a bit different compared to all the others existing platform. And that's why you are
Okay.
able to get more power and more efficiency on top of that. So that's the basic
Okay.
difference for the layman people, how Flutter can helpful for them for the cross platform
Okay.
mobile app.
Okay. So one of the things that I have observed is recently Flutter's popularity, like in a while, has been increased a lot. A lot of people are accepting Flutter for even enterprises applications as well. So what do you think is the reason for that?
There can be multiple reasons. The one reason is the cost optimization, because you don't have to deploy the dedicated teams or dedicated platform. You can have a single team which have expertise, or like have a skill set to build application using the Flutter. So that's the one thing. Second is this developer experience is quite phenomenal. So that means if you are building something, you can see the changes this instantaneously in your simulator or in your real device. So that means your development time is compared to the any other framework is quite less. So you can release faster, you can deploy faster, you can make and break the thing faster. So that is also another the better aspect of it, in terms of like building faster and the cost. And the third thing is, as in the previous question we discussed, that you have the full power or full authority to build anything. So that means you are not limited to whatever the system is providing. So any kind of creativity, any kind of your brand specific stuff, you can do it. So that's the another aspect of having the Flutter and the beneficial of the Flutter. And why it is gaining lot of popularity, one is it's actually fast to get on it. So whenever any new technologies comes, and if the learning curve is big, it's very difficult to start with and to start development. If I give an example, the Web3. So Web3 is a bit complex because you have to understand some fundamentals over there. But in Flutter, if you already know how to write the code on any language, you can easily jump on it and you can just start working on it. So the documentation is quite good. The community support is good. If you need anything, you just go on a Google and you might able to find the solution. So that is also some other parts of it why Flutter is getting so much popularity. Also, there are
Mhm.
local meetups are happening who are focusing over there. They invite folks like us who love to talk about it. So there are a lot of in-person community events, workshops are also happening. So people can go and connect with the people and get the resolution of their questions.
Correct.
So I
Correct.
think these are the major factors of it.
Yeah, I think documentation and community plays a vital role in any kind of
Correct.
technology growing out its popularity. That is true. Yeah. So, do you have any real world case studies or examples where Flutter has been successfully adopted in enterprise level settings?
So in enterprise, there are multiple applications which I'm aware of. So I don't know whether the people here know the shipping industry. In the shipping industry, there is a one company called Maersk who has his own
Mhm.
vessels. तो उनका बड़ा सा ship जाता है. On that ship they have the containers, like big
Okay.
containers where actually whole your logistics or whole your goods are actually being transferred from one country to another via the sea. Okay. So they company have, I guess, more than 15 plus internal enterprise applications and built
Mhm.
using the Flutter. There is another
Okay.
company in Singapore, I guess Singapore Truckers or something like that. I just missed the actual name, but it is regarding the trucking industry in the Singapore. They have also used the Flutter for their building their enterprise applications internally. So these are like some widely open known names. There are some internal apps which I don't know. I don't think that people might be aware of, but there are plenty of applications are being developed in the Flutter, especially in the enterprise area.
Okay. Okay. So we are moving a little bit towards your role, and it's kind of, a general overview. So, can you elaborate a little bit about the role of a lead architecture in guiding Flutter projects within a large organization like Tata Digital, the one that you're working? So, how exactly a person should, lead that kind of role?
So I will give a general answer that what exactly the lead architecture role means. So whenever you
Mm.
go and in especially in the software industry, the lead architecture means is you are actually leading the whole architecture of your application. So if,
Yeah.
in that case, like for example, if you are building a one building, okay, now that
Mm.
building is either that can be a flat, that can be a bungalow, that can be a library, that can be a school, or that can be a mall as well. But how you define that what it can be? So that means the architecture will come and they will create a one blueprint. And if the engineers will follow the blueprint, it will come actually what has been asked for. Like for example, if architecture come and create a blueprint of library, and that is given to the engineers who are building, who are creating that building, right? And if they follow all the instruction which is mentioned in that architecture document or the blueprint, they will end up by building library only. They won't build the mall or like the home. So that's the critical roles. The same things applies for the software as well. So as a software architect, as a leads architect, you you are responsible to building a solution. You have to document it properly so that when you give to the tech team or dev team, they will just follow the instruction and they will end up by building the same solution which has been proposed in the document. It's like
Correct. Correct.
very critical skill to have to articulate the solution in the document and make sure that you're not missing any nitty gritty of it. Because if you miss anything and if the interpretation might be get different, then developers might ended up building something else which is not been requested,
Correct.
right? So yeah, it's a very responsible and very critical job. And during this job, I also learned a lot of things because I wasn't good in terms of writing a document. So for me, it was like great learning. My managers was like quite helpful for me. So whenever I go, with my solution, they were helping me to refactor it and to with the suggestion, hey, Dhrumil, you can update this. So these are the thing are majorly a architect is responsible for which and
Okay.
also in this solution doc or in that the whole doc there are many aspects that architect need to take care of, like is a
Mhm.
security, is optimization, is the cost of the tools that are being used, the different systems to whom it is getting connected. For example, I'm building a one solution which is connecting with different existing service or different existing feature, so that the solution which I'm proposing is must be the backward compatible and it's not going to break the existing system as well. So a lot of things we need to take care of.
Correct. And so I think one of the thing that for adopting any kind of technology is security. So without having a good security options in that particular technology, it's too hard for any enterprises to adopt that technology. So how does Flutter plays a role in that domain?
Sure. So in security, if you talk about the Flutter, and again, right now we are more focusing on the mobile application, even though the Flutter supports a lot of other platforms. Let's just limit our discussion to the mobile app specific. So in Flutter, what
Hmm.
happens whenever you build, it has own memory runtime. So that's the first thing, that your memory hijacking will be very difficult. Also, the Flutter package itself into its own bundle, and then it will get added into your native bundles, whether it's APK or IP. So that means the reverse engineering is possible, but it's a difficult to compared to the existing technologies.
Hmm.
Plus, on top of that, as Android and iOS have their own obfuscations libraries. So that means you are actually building a Flutter thing. Flutter already have this own encryption stuff or obfuscation in his bundle. On top of that, you're doing obfuscation for the Android as well. So again, it's a multiple layers. Now this is about the bundle size, but when you start writing the code and when you start like doing the network calls, or you are communicating with a third party server or your own server, then also during the network you require the secure tunneling, the HTTPS protocols and everything. So those all the things are available out of the box. Also,
Okay.
while you are doing a local storage on the mobile applications, also there you have encryption decryption packages available. So the ecosystem is quite good. So whatever thing you require
Hmm.
in terms of security, right,
Hmm.
securing or like transferring or everything, that's all are available in the Flutter out of the box.
Okay.
Or maybe you can find a plugin out for that.
Okay. So one thing I can understand from this is that any new, any irrespective of whether it is a cross-platform or native, if company is building a new tech stack, I think a lot of things are there that comes into consideration. And the biggest thing that developer is expecting is convenience. That it should be very convenient for them to add these things rather than getting a lot of head scratches around the language and trying to understand which dependency we need to add or how we need to do that.
Correct.
So yeah, that's so one of the things that I think you can you will be very good able to explain in this, the cross platform capability of Flutter. One of the things that Flutter is really being used a lot because is its cross platform for both the iOS and Android sites. So how does this works for Flutter, and what all things are to be considered while developing any kind of application from a developer's perspective?
I mean, are you asking for that how Flutter is used for the cross-platform app, or
Yeah,
sorry, I didn't
correct.
get the question.
Yeah, so
Okay,
how Flutter is
so
used for cross platform, and what all things are to be considered from a developer's perspective while doing developing such projects?
okay, so there are two answers. So one is like when you are solving a problem where the experience is same. Like for example, if you are developing in one application which looks and feels same on Android and iOS, okay, then only you should go for cross-platform, solution. Otherwise, what will happen? You will ended up, writing a lot of if-else code. Like if it is iOS, then I need to, do
Correct.
something else with Android. So it's better to go for native on that case. So this cross-platform technology, or specifically Flutter, will help you a much more better way when you have the same solution, but you don't care that whether a user is on Android, iOS, or web or text. Correct. So that means your solution is common. So in that case, you will choose the Flutter. Now, while you are choosing a Flutter, what are the things you need to take care of? One is like your setup, your folder structures. So Flutter is a reactive framework, and it comes with a declarative syntax, declarative UI. So over there, you have to take care of how you are communicating with the different components, different widgets. Here we call as widgets. So the whole architecture
Mm,
is widgets based architecture. So how you take care of how they are talking to each other. Now when you say they're talking to each other, that will how they're passing the data from one component to another component, whether that data is shared across the app or not. So that we known as a state.
mm,
The state of your application, state of your widget, state of your page or screen, how you're managing that. So that state management
mm,
technologies or the state management strategies rather than technologies, I would say. So that the state management strategies, your folder structure, your testing framework, uh, your navigations, right, your analytics, your push notifications. So those are some critical things that require that all the applications requires. So now when you're choosing this, make sure when you're starting with, you choose that accordingly as per your requirement, and you place that in the right place from the day one. And then you start building the app, and you can start helping your team that, hey, now you can just take this piece of code or take this piece of feature and then start building on top of that. So that's how
okay.
ideally you should be doing it for your team, for their convenience.
Okay. So one of the important factor for any enterprise, to adopt any kind of technology is cost. So from a financial perspective, so what are the potential cost saving benefits of using Flutter in an enterprise project, both in terms of development and maintenance?
Okay, so first thing is, because it's every the whole architecture is about inside the Flutter is all about the widget base. Everything is a widget. So that means in enterprise application, most of the time you will be using the same components. So that means your code reusability will help you to save your cost. Like for example, throughout your enterprise, like you have 10 or 15 application in your one enterprise. Okay. Now in every app you have a login. So you are not going to write that login again and
Correct.
again. What you will do is you will create your insider package of your authentication login, and you will implement it everywhere, right? And then if you want to modify it according to that particular requirement, like for example, one of the application is for your administrations only, another application is for your accounts, another application is for operation people. So you can actually do the modification using that. So you can create a one module of the authentication, you will add that capability that, hey, you can restrict and add more functionalities. So that's the one thing that you can save in terms of the cost. Another thing, Flutter is open source. So there is no license required to use that technology and to build on top of that and sell it. So open source right now. So that means there is no cost to build any of the thing on top of it. The only cost is like the deployment on that particular app store or play store, whatever the subscription fees are.
Correct.
So I don't think that any other extra cost with respect to the Flutter it comes.
Okay. And
Though,
so
yeah,
if
sorry. One more point I just able to recall is, yeah, the cost is like will get half because now you have Flutter developer, and you do not need to hire a separate skill set
correct,
for your native platforms. So that will
correct,
help
correct.
you to actually reduce the cost.
Yeah, both the platforms is being taken care by only one developer. So that is
Correct.
one of the best cost saving. Yeah. So one more thing that comes in mind when you are going to adopt Flutter is how we can for the enterprises where they already have an application set. So all the architecture or all the all the plan is set for a legacy application, and now they're planning to migrate to Flutter. So how hard is it to integrate Flutter in this scenario?
So I have two answers. One is like in terms of a dev, or one is like in terms of a business. So when we talk about enterprise application and changing the tech stack
Mhm.
is really very costly in terms of the operations and executions. So whenever any enterprise take the decision that, hey, now we want to change the tech stacks, is always a very difficult a challenge to do it, because in enterprise there are a lot of things happening, and just to change your tech stack and to halt your current applications, being worked is very difficult. So most of the time, what happens that they take an approach of step by step upgrading. If the application is quite big, if the application is small and they can deploy a dedicated team, then they have a small team who is doing parallelly development. As soon as this application ready, they will switch it. So in the first case where there is a big application, what they do is they will start with the small portion of it. And in the Flutter, there is a feature called Add to App. So that means you can add your Flutter app, Flutter module in any existing application on the native one. Okay. So
Mm.
for example, you have a big applications. Now over there, you want to introduce a new feature. Let's take an example. If you want to add a search feature in your application, and that search feature you want to build using the Flutter. So what you will do is you will build a
Mm.
search feature. You will add inside it. Slowly, gradually, you will pick another feature, and you will add
Correct.
inside it. So slowly and gradually, as soon as you will getting a lot of feedback, a good feedback about Flutter, and if you think that now it's a good time to move actually on Flutter, you can switch to the Flutter. So these are the ways enterprise can take. So these are different approaches based on their requirement, based on their availability of the skill set, based on their cost, based on the release timeline. Because the as a developer, we just used to think, yeah, your Flutter, we'll do it. Chalo, let's do it. But no, when it comes to enterprise, it's not just a tech. So in enterprise, tech is just an enabler. It's not a main key. Okay. So
Correct.
in enterprise, it's all about the business. It's all about the operations. It's all about the daily, schedule stuff. Tech is just enable them all the things.
Correct, correct. So I think enterprises has a lot of things in their plate to, take care of,
Correct.
rather than just implementing any kind of tech stack. That is true. So yeah,
Correct.
so now we came to the adaptation of Flutter, and now the application is ready. So now comes the question of testing and QA. So how strategies? How do we plan strategies for doing good testing and making sure that the quality assurance is also really good for Flutter-based enterprise applications?
So what happens in testing most of the time that we consider testing is the last portion of our whole SDLC cycle. But ideally, it's not the right way. Ideally, testing should be the first. Like as soon as the requirement comes, the QA team should
Hmm.
start getting involved. As soon as they are getting involved, they will tell that hey, these things need to be taken care of in terms of quality,
Okay.
in terms of the security, in terms of the integration with the different
Hmm.
systems and everything. So once they will start it, the Flutter developer will start writing the code. Now in Flutter, you have all the things available which you require in terms of the testing environment. So you have unit testing for your code coverage and everything. You have integration testing. You have golden testing as well, where you can implement the whole automation, where it will just simply run the app. It will actually do perform all the automation. It will create the screenshot and also give you the reports in terms of the field. So Flutter has the whole coverage of testing. So that is the one of the the best part of this framework, so that you can utilize and this thing can be done by developers easily, and also the dedicated QA team also can do this.
Okay, okay. So, as a Google developer expert, what are your suggestions for the developers who are, planning to get into Flutter development, especially for a professional level experience like an enterprise application or a company where they are planning to work for Flutter?
So when it comes to the enterprise application, the only Flutter knowledge will not gonna help you much, because when you are going to enterprise application, obviously they have been working on the legacy code with the existing platforms or native one. So first thing is with the top of your Flutter knowledge, try getting the native platform knowledge as well, because you have to be there and you have to learn that thing. I mean, you will be deployed to work on those stuff. If you don't know how Android works, how you will be able to add your Flutter module inside the Android, it will be a bit difficult or a bit challenging. So when you get this opportunity to work with enterprise, make sure that you just don't become a Flutter developer. You become a mobile app developer, and then you
Hmm.
add the skill of native platform as well. So start learning those things apart from the Flutter as well when you get a chance. Second thing, make sure whenever you are going into the enterprise, as in the Flutter developer, your core strength should be to know about the framework end to end. You should know what exactly happens when you use a container or when you use Sizebox, and when to use one of it from this two. So these two are the name of the widgets inside the Flutter that
Okay.
they do almost similar stuff. but still people do not get into that depth. Okay, so there is another widgets. I'll just give an example. There is another two different widgets, which is are the flexible and the extended. Okay, both
Hmm.
can be work on behalf of each other, but when to use which and how to use correctly, that knowledge should require. And for that, a developer have to dig deeper to read documentation, to start working on it, or to make your hands dirty with the code actually. So the core
Okay.
principles required, that's the must. The native, the framework knowledge required. And third thing is understand the product when you go inside it. Because
Correct.
the some your manager or the or like or the product team will come, hey, we want to change the button from bottom center to top right. Okay, you will say,
Hmm.
ये क्या हो गया, ये क्यों चाहिए मेरे को? This is not required, but you don't understand that
Correct.
because people are not able to reach at the bottom. That most of the thing happening on the top, so they need the button on the top because यहाँ पे keyboard
Correct.
खुला हुआ है. So that thing,
Yes.
as a developer, sometimes we miss. So that's called a user empathy, the product mindset.
Hmm.
So that is also another
Hmm.
thing that's required when you're going to the enterprise. It makes a lot of differences when you comes to the enterprise and when you come as in the indie developer, or as in the just as in the hacker of particular tech. The hacking a particular technology is
Hmm.
a different thing, but building a solution which is getting used by the millions of people or users, it's a total different ball game.
Okay. I think you have given a really good perspective, because most of the time this does happen that developer is having a little bit different perspective, and the person who is bringing in the requirements, to change something, and then the developer will say, yeah, yeah, why do we need this? But I
Correct.
think there should be always a perspective in that point as well. So that's really a good that's really a good topic that you put up. Thank you for that.
Also, one more thing I want
Okay.
to add on top of that. So, as a developer, we always
Hmm.
miss to ask the right question. We just so either we follow blindly, or either we just push back ourselves. नहीं ये नहीं होगा, or otherwise we
Hmm.
won't do it. But rather than
Hmm.
doing that, the developer should start asking the right question. Hey, why you are asking this? To move this, how it will help?
Correct.
What are the changes that it will bring in our user base? How it will help us to reach out to the maximum, right? So those are the questions should come from the develop, like from the engineers who are actually going to build it. So I guess
Correct.
that is
Correct.
also missing in the whole our developer ecosystem. हम लोग क्या
True.
करते हैं,
True.
सिर्फ जाते हैं, we got a ticket to work on, we start working on it. Simple.
That is true. But I think one of the reason for that can be like, so in a lot of companies right now, what is happening is, so this is not something that I have experienced, but I think I have seen a little bit of that as well. Ki,
Mhm.
they are giving something to most of the companies, they are trying to do patchwork. And, a lot of developers are not getting that chance to implement something new, and that is because maybe that is because there are a lot of people who are into development, and so we'll get very less chance to add people into a proper end-to-end solution. So उसकी वजह से शायद ये हो सकता है कि will not get a perspective as well. That might be one of the scenario, but still one of the scenario is, yes, developer sometimes, like, people are also not interested कि इतना क्यों करे, जो बोल रहे कर देंगे, it's fine. Like that
No,
also it might happen, but yeah.
no, completely agree. So whatever the one point which you mentioned, and that one word you use is a patchwork. So why
Mm,
we require that patchwork? If you go if you dig deeper, that why this patchwork
mm,
required, there can be two
mm,
reasons. First is, as soon as it gets started, there might be a lot of people out there and they are just suggesting and they just need to get the things up. That's the first,
correct.
because there was very less time. Second thing is when the solution is getting architected, okay, it's not been
Mm,
followed. If it could have been followed, it could be easy. Now the third thing, which is most critical thing, that when the patchwork comes, when it comes to a developer,
mm,
now it's a
mm,
developer responsibility. Either the
correct.
developer actually just patching it, or exactly it is actually
Mm,
going to the root and solving it. Does the developer
correct.
asking the question, hey manager, can I just get one more day and I want to fix it thoroughly? No,
Correct.
most of the time the answer is no. Why?
No,
Because नहीं यार,
yes.
मेरे पास 5 है, मेरे पास और 10 tickets है which I need to solve.
Mm, correct.
Right. But in the morning, when the stand-up starts, a developer can say, hey, I found that this patchwork is not going to work for a long time. I need some more time and I want to fix it thoroughly. This will help to
Correct.
close the other tickets as well, because this is
Correct.
annual application. So if that mindset comes in the developer, it will be
Hmm.
very easy to maintain the
Yes.
application. Now, whether it's a
Hmm.
Flutter or any other tech, but this mindset is the required.
Correct. 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 That is true. That is true. So
Yeah.
yeah, moving to a little bit of advanced, questions. One of the thing that we can that I wanted to ask you is like, can you discuss specific architectural patterns like block architecture or provider that you recommend for complex enterprise level applications which are being developed in Flutter, and how do they affect the development efficiency and maintainability as well?
Okay. So I would like to correct here to you. So
Mhm.
block or provider, the two names which you mentioned, those are not the architecture.
Hmm.
So those
Okay.
are just a libraries to help you to implement state management.
Okay.
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 Yeah. So the architecture means, like the example which we discussed initially when the call is started. What exactly the architecture means is a blueprint that how you can visualize your applications. Now all
Hmm.
these tools, whether it's a provider or a blog, anything that can help you to reach to that level. So
Okay.
architecture, I'll give an example. So architecture in Flutter application looks like a clean architecture. So where a clean architecture, that means you have everything separated. Your API layer is separated, which just its responsibility is just to call the API and get the data. Simple.
Mhm.
There is a one controller mechanism, or exactly your business logic layer, right, which actually do all this calculation. So it just call the
Hmm.
API layer that, hey, can you just get me the data? Then as soon as data comes, it will manipulate the data and it will segregate in the required format. And the third is
Hmm.
like your UI layer. So your UI required, for example, if you just go back to our search example, okay, now I want to create a search screen. In search screen, I have one text field and a list
Mhm.
items. So what will happen over here? As soon as user will start typing something, it will call an API with the some words. Now, most of the time, what happens? User will, like, sorry, not user. The developers will, write a code. के जैसे user ने start किया ना लिखना, it every character it will call an API. It don't require,
Hmm.
because we know that
Hmm.
user will start fast, right? Type fast.
Correct.
Sorry. So then you can wait कि हाँ अगर user कुछ 100 millisecond 200 millisecond के बाद ही मैं call करूँगा, because then user need to type. So
Correct. Hmm.
you need to make sure that your network logic layer is been separated. Your business logic, the
Hmm.
data आने के बाद क्या करना है? What do you need to do on
Correct.
top of that? Whether you are taking only
Hmm.
top 3, top 5, top 10, top 100 data and you are sending back to the UI, and then UI will get rendered, or in between, what will happen on the UI layer? So that means when user are typing, what will happen? Will you show a progress bar? Will you show a shimmer? So everything else. So this
Okay.
whatever thing is getting displayed, whether it's a shimmer, whether it's a progress bar, that comes in the UI. Now, which one
Okay.
will get shown? That will be taken care by your business logic layer. Now, if you
Hmm.
take an example of a blog, so blog have their state and events. All right. So here the event will get fired that, hey, fetch data for this string. That means if you are typing the mobile, so it will search for all the mobiles. So meanwhile, the data comes, it will just show a progress loader. That means
Correct.
fetching the data.
Hmm.
As soon as data arrived, it will post the data. Now, image might take the time. So on that image view, you might put the shimmer, right?
Hmm.
So that's how the things happen. So now, in terms of architecture of this thing, so you are creating the separate modules for a separate stuff. Like your UI layer is different, your logic layer is different, your data layer is different. Now in data also you can be a multiple layers, right? If
Hmm.
network is not there, from where you will get the data? So when your data is
Correct.
coming, you are storing your local DB, and from local DB you are getting the data. So your business logic layer, what will do whenever any request come, it will first go to your local data and it will fetch it. Now, if the
Correct.
data is not available in local data, it will go to an API and call it. So if your both the things are different, right, you have
Hmm.
written differently, it will be easy to like plug and play. Now, for example, if your REST API will get replaced with the GraphQL, so it will be easy because you are just right changing that logic. All the logic will be same
Same.
here.
Correct.
इसको सिर्फ data call करना है, it will just giving you a data. So यहाँ पे REST
Correct.
API की जगह पे there will be GraphQL. Now that will actually
Hmm.
call the API, like the GraphQL API, and
Hmm.
that will give you the data
Correct.
the way you require. So if your
Correct.
architecture is done properly, and when any change will come, that will help you to like fix it faster. So that's the one way.
Hmm.
And when you are writing an enterprise application, right? So you can actually all the modules that you create, like search module, the authentication module, or any the common modules, you can create as in the bundles. So it's a
Hmm.
modular architecture. So you can fit in anywhere because search
Correct.
हर जगह चाहिए होगा, right?
Correct.
Authentication हर जगह चाहिए, profile हर जगह चाहिए. So those are the things you can create as a module, as packages. Most of the enterprise applications follow this modular architecture or the package-based architecture, where they have multiple
Hmm.
packages added, and whatever they will build as a package or a plugin.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
so one like whenever we are building application, one of the thing that we need to take in consideration is scalability. What do we do about scalability? So what strategies do you suggest to make sure we are able to scale the application in coming future as well, and also optimizing the performance of the Flutter applications?
Yeah, so this is like very good question, especially in the performance. So when you scale your application, scale in terms of the number of code, number of line of code you are sorry. So number of line of code you are adding to your application. So you have to take care
Mm-hmm.
of that. You are not adding unnecessary code which is actually not required. So if I give an example, if I want to implement a simple animation, right? So what I will do, I will search for it. If I get a package, I will add it. Now in the package, there are multiple stuffs are there apart from the one animation utility which I want to use. But
Correct.
as I am adding, it is added unnecessarily. But thanks to the Flutter, because it has the tree shaking algorithm, so it wipe off. But there are some code
Okay.
which is there and which is not getting used, right? So make sure you are not utilizing the unnecessary stuff in terms of optimization. When you are scaling, make sure the architecture should be enabled the way that we discussed, that I can each plug and play anything. So that means you can build a scalable application. So if you follow the solid principles, right, where the O means open close principles, right? So that means
Hmm.
open for modification, open for extensibility, close for the modification, right? So your
Modification.
your architecture should be in such a way that you can actually extend it, but the core functionality should not get modified by the someone who are adding the extension which you are adding it. Okay,
Correct.
so if you
Hmm.
follow this, the basic principles of software development, which is like a solid principle, dry principle, and everything, so that will help you to make a scalable application. So that's why I was
Okay.
focusing on that the core concept should be strong enough when you go to the
Hmm.
enterprise. वहां पे
Correct.
जाके आप ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते नहीं सर आई थिंक दैट HTTP is better package than the dio. No, you can't. You can't say that. You have to prove it. Why it is better?
Correct.
On which
Sorry.
ground you are talking about? In
Sorry.
terms of memory, in terms of execution, in terms of the latency. So a lot of things comes into the picture.
Yeah, so एक बात जो I have realized is कि as we move ahead in experience, I think lot of things. So during development, we have to take the fundamentals into consideration a lot of times. So we cannot just
Correct.
do and say हाँ ये develop कर दिया और हो गया. We cannot do that. So as we
Correct.
are moving ahead in experience, irrespective of the designation, I think it is expected that we should have that fundamentals in our in our thought process while developing any kind of application, or whenever we are trying to fix any kind of issue in an application. So that is one thing that I realize as I'm moving forward in IT industry.
Nice, nice. But you see, when you do a progress in your professional career, especially in IT, from junior engineer to senior engineer to staff engineer to the principal engineer. So as soon as you go up in the professional ladder, you are actually responsible to solve the problem, not just to write the code. So when it
Correct.
comes to solving a problem, यू हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ ऑल दिस एस्पेक्ट्स कि भाई अगर मेरे को
Hmm.
सिर्फ एक चीज इंप्लीमेंट करनी है लाइक सर्च के अंदर इफ एज सुन एज यूजर कम्स आई वांट टू शो हिज रिसेंट सर्चेस लाइक लास्ट टाइम वॉट एवर ही हैज टाइप हाउ आई विल कम सो until unless if I say store it somewhere I will not be able to do it. Now उसका storing strategy क्या रहेगा? Should I store it on a server? Should I store it on a local? Should I store it in somewhere else? I don't know. So this based on a requirement and based on your thought process that how you are going to solve the use. If there is no internet and if user still comes on search page, and so whether your app will show that hey these are your previous searches and click of that you have still cached those results, or you will simply show, hey, no internet, please connect to the internet. Okay, so there are different use cases, different the business cases, and different way of implementation of the things. So all these things you need to think it. You need to take care while you are building a solution with respect
Correct.
to your problem statement or your domain.
Okay. So one thing we missed while we were discussing about, developing a Flutter architecture, that was error handling and debugging. So error handling and debugging can be very complex in large code base. So what debugging tools and practices do you find most effective when troubleshooting issues in enterprise level Flutter applications?
So there is no difference, especially in debugging, in the error handling it. Uh, in the normal application and enterprise application, the only thing is you have to be very cautious about, because each and every failure or miss case you have to take care of it. So you
Correct.
know that this is going to be failed based on your requirement. You must be covered with the track edge or your other error handling techniques. So most of the
Hmm.
time, what happens is all these enterprise application have this the crash reporting tools enabled. Either is a Crashlytics, or either is a maybe what the another tools. I guess only the Crashlytics most of the people are using for the crashes. I can't able to recall the other names. Okay, fine. There are the analytics thing. Okay, so analytics also helps you to drip down that from where the user came. For example, there is a one
Okay.
issue is continuously happening in your app, and you are not getting the crash report on it, and like user are telling, hey, this is not working, this is not working. How you will dig it down? So either you
Hmm.
will go through that journey. अब वो जर्नी में जाने के लिए आप क्या करोगे? Do you call that customer कि अरे बताओ तुम जरा reproduce करो? No, you can't do that, right?
Correct.
So, so from the day you started, like writing an application, you have to take care of that. What are things can be failed, and you can actually track the user journey. So there are analytics tools available that user came on this screen, how much time he spent on this screen, on which button he tapped, where he landed, and then user said that अच्छा मेरे यहाँ पे आके crash हो रहा है.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So the analytics thing, the crash reporting tool, you need to put in place properly. The exceptions and error, because when it comes to the Flutter, so Flutter have different kind of the mechanism to handle exceptions and errors. So errors are different, exceptions are different. So make sure that you handle both the things, not just exception. So try catch me
Hmm.
exception ये लिख दिया is not like the error handling or exception
Correct.
handling. You have to make sure that you handle it properly in each cases. Sometimes what
Hmm.
happens, uh, like some on the initial level, I have seen those applications. अगर स्प्लैश स्क्रीन आता है, और स्प्लैश स्क्रीन का टाइम फॉर एग्जांपल 3 सेकंड, उसके पहले अगर मैं ऐप बंद कर दूं तो भी उसका होम पेज ओपन हो जाता है. Why? Because user didn't like developer didn't thought कि हाँ यार ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि 3 सेकंड में
हो
यूजर ऐप
सकता है.
क्लोज कर सकता है. उसने तो कोड लिख दिया
Hmm.
कि भाई नेविगेट कर लो होम पेज पे. And then it just यूजर ने ऐप डाउनलोड मतलब यूजर ने ऐप बंद कर दिया, ऑब्वियसली इट विल थ्रो अ क्रैश, एंड देन इट विल शो है
Correct.
योर ऐप गॉट क्रैश. वो बट वो
Correct.
नेविगेट होना ही नहीं चाहिए, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट इन मेमोरी.
Hmm.
So
Correct.
these are the things also user need to take care of, like whether the app is already running or not, and if you are doing any if you are doing any operations, if you are doing any IO operations. For example,
Hmm.
you have made an API call कि हाँ चलो आपको इनवॉइस डाउनलोड करना है. ठीक है, आपने एक बिल पे कर दिया अपना घर का इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का. नाउ यू प्रेस ऑन डाउनलोड द
Hmm.
इनवॉइस, और
Hmm.
बिफोर द इनवॉइस गेट डाउनलोडेड यू किल द ऐप. व्हाट विल हैपन?
Correct. The
वो
invoice will
सिनेरियो
get
कौन डील
cracked.
करेगा? ऑब्वियसली वी एज अ डेवलपर वी हैव टू थिंक थ्रू इट,
Hmm. Correct.
राइट? सो नेटवर्क कॉल
Hmm.
क्या होगा? बंद हो जाएगा, बीच में रुक जाएगा, क्या होगा? Let's take another example. If you are pressing the download invoice button, okay, download bill button, और इंटरनेट बंद हो गया, तो क्या होगा? अगर
Correct.
इंटरनेट वापस आ गया तो क्या होगा? लाइक यूजर
Correct.
विल
कहाँ से स्टार्ट
नोटिस कि
करेंगे?
हाँ डाउनलोड नहीं हुआ है, वापस डाउनलोड करो, या यू ऑटोमेटिकली मेक अ रिक्वेस्ट.
Hmm.
So you have to make sure कि ये सारी, this is the human error, or like this is the human actions.
Hmm.
These are the thing also consider as in the error handling or exception handling also. So you can also make sure that
Hmm.
these are the scenarios also been covered in your error
Hmm.
handling. So there are a lot of things that you need to think through it. It's not just simply download button.
करेक्ट. एक यूजर का पर्सपेक्टिव चाहिए, सिर्फ डेवलपर का नहीं चाहिए. दैट इज व्हाट एक्सपेक्टेड फ्रॉम अ डेवलपर, दैट एक यूजर का भी पर्सपेक्टिव यू शुड हैव इट.
Correct. So just to add one more thing. Now, let's just go about the happy journeys that internet is there. User made the payment. Now user click on download the bill. Now clicking on download the bill is get downloaded as well. But now you don't have enough memory. तो क्या होगा?
Correct.
So now
Correct.
it might throw an exception. Hey, memory is not available or permission नहीं दिया उसने. For example, download button click किया,
Hmm.
but उसने deny कर दिया कि नहीं, I will not allow your local storage. तो क्या होगा? So again, the
Correct.
exception will come. So these are all the things. The try, care, on mission, everything need to take care.
I think I think this one of the thing that today in this podcast was good that we got an end-to-end idea about Flutter application कैसे develop किया जाए, what all things to be considered. So it was really great. And at the end, so by we are almost at the end of the podcast. और एक question जो मैं सबको पूछता हूँ, irrespective of the domain is कि वो
Okay.
particular technology, where do you see it in 5 years? So where do you see Flutter in coming 5 years?
Really tough question for me. Because see, the things are evolving very fast. Like even we
Correct.
don't know that what will come today evening. Okay.
Hmm.
Because if you remember that that OpenAI CEO stuff.
Sam
That,
Altman.
he got
Hmm.
fired, and then on the next day he got
Correct.
acquired, and then he got again come back. So anything can happen. So based on my perspective, Flutter is going to last for at least next 4 to 5 years for sure, because
Hmm.
the way they are targeting the particular domain, which is cross-platform development. So if you might have got an information that they have announce one challenge, a Flutter game challenge.
Hmm.
That means you can
Hmm.
develop games as well, the 2D, 3D games
Hmm.
as well, right? So that means
Okay.
they are going into gaming industries as well. So even still, the Flutter need to evolve a lot in terms of web, desktop, and everything. But yeah, it's going on the direction. So I think that in a 4 or 5 year, Flutter will be a good toolkit for building your application, and you don't need to worry about that where your user is, in which
Correct.
platform. You just need to take
Correct.
care of that. हाँ यार, user का ये problem है, I'm solving that, and this is how I'm gonna solve. And the Flutter will would be a better choice for that kind of thing. That's what I'm anticipating to a Flutter to be in next upcoming
Correct.
5 years.
Great. I think it was really a great podcast. Lot of information in this podcast that we have, got from your end, and I really thank you for your time. And yeah, everyone. So whatever social links I'll get from Dhrumil sir, I'll add them in the description. So make sure check it out and check out the whole playlist. Thank you again, Dhrumil sir, for your time, and it was really great learning. And I hope to have another podcast with you again soon, sometime in coming future. So let's hope for it. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for chasing down, and like having me on this. I know we are in a discussion since almost like 2 to 3 months. That hey sir, when we can come and record this podcast. But yeah, finally we are here. So thank you so much for
Yes.
uh, your continuous nudges, and yeah, let's sure let me know for the next podcast when we can meet. Thank you so
Sure,
much.
sure. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
everyone. Keep innovating. Thank you. Bye.